Maria had done this drive 100 times before. The winding mountain road that led to her mother's house was as familiar to her as her own driveway. She knew every curve, every steep hill, and every scenic overlook along the way. But today was different. Today, nature had other plans. The weather forecast had mentioned light snow. Nothing more than a gentle dusting that would make the trees look pretty. Maria had packed little Anna's diaper bag, grabbed some warm blankets, and headed out for what should have been a peaceful Sunday visit with Grandma. Anna, just 6 months old, had been fussy all morning, but the gentle motion of the car usually helped her sleep. As they climbed higher into the mountains, the light snow began to fall harder. What started as delicate flakes dancing in the wind quickly turned into thick, heavy snow that stuck to everything it touched. Maria turned on the windshield wipers and slowed down, but she wasn't too worried. She had driven in snow before. Then the wind picked up. It wasn't just snowing anymore. It was a full blizzard. The wind howled around the car, pushing it sideways on the narrow road. Maria gripped the steering wheel tighter, her knuckles turning white. She could barely see 10 feet ahead of her. The road seemed to disappear into a wall of swirling white. "It's okay, baby," she whispered to Anna, who had started crying in her car seat. "Mommy's got this. We'll be at Grandma's house soon." But even as she said the words, Maria felt her confidence slipping away. The snow was coming down so hard now that her wipers couldn't keep up. Ice was forming on the windshield faster than the defroster could melt it. She leaned forward, squinting through the small clear patch at the bottom of the windshield, trying to follow the yellow lines on the road. That's when she felt it, the back wheels sliding on a patch of ice. Maria had taken driving lessons in the city, but nothing had prepared her for this. She tried to steer into the slide like she'd been taught, but the car had a mind of its own now. Time seemed to slow down as she felt the vehicle spinning. Turning sideways on the narrow mountain road, the guardrail came up fast, too fast. Maria heard the terrible sound of metal scraping against metal, then the sickening sensation of the car tilting, rolling, falling. She threw her arm back instinctively, trying to protect Anna, even though she knew the car seat would do a better job than she ever could. The world turned upside down, literally. When everything finally stopped moving, Maria found herself hanging from her seat belt, looking up at the car's roof, which was now pressed against the snowy ground. The engine had gone quiet. The radio had cut out. All she could hear was the wind howling outside and Anna crying. Thank goodness, Anna was crying. That meant she was alive. SHH, baby, SHH. Maria said, her voice shaking. She fumbled with her seat belt, her hands trembling from shock and cold. When she finally got free, she crawled over to Anna's car seat. The baby was red-faced and screaming, but she appeared to be unhurt. The car seat had done its job perfectly. Maria tried her cell phone, but there were no bars. Of course there weren't. They were in the middle of nowhere, in a valley between two mountains. During the worst storm she'd ever seen, she looked around the overturned car, taking stock of their situation. The windows had spider-webbed from the impact, and cold air was already seeping in through the cracks. She found a thick blanket in the back seat and wrapped it around Anna, who was still crying but not as loudly now. Then she looked for anything else that might help: her purse, Anna's diaper bag, a jacket she'd thrown in the back seat just in case. Every item felt precious now. The temperature was dropping fast. She could see her breath forming little clouds in the air, and Anna's crying was becoming weaker. Maria knew enough about cold weather to understand that this was dangerous. Very dangerous. The car would provide some shelter, but not much. Not with the broken windows and the way the wind was whipping through every gap. She tried the engine, but it wouldn't start. She tried the radio, but it was dead too. They were completely cut off from the world, trapped in an overturned car in the middle of a blizzard, with no way to call for help. Maria looked at her daughter, so small and helpless in her arms. Anna's little face was starting to look pale, and her lips had a slight blue tint that made Maria's heart race with fear. She had to make a decision, and she had to make it fast. Stay in the car and hope someone would find them, or venture out into the storm and try to find help. neither option seemed good. The car offered some protection from the wind, but it was filling up with snow through the broken windows, and if they stayed, how long would it be before someone found them? This was a back road, not heavily traveled even in good weather. In a storm like this, they might not see another car for days. But going outside meant walking into a blizzard with a baby. The nearest house was miles away, and in this weather, she might get lost and never find it. She might make things worse instead of better. As if sensing her mother's fear, Anna started crying again, a weak, tired cry that broke Maria's heart. The baby was getting cold, and Maria knew they couldn't wait much longer to make a decision. Every minute they stayed here, their situation was getting more desperate. Maria looked out at the swirling snow and made up her mind. They couldn't just sit here and wait to freeze. She had to try to save her daughter, even if it meant risking everything. Maria wrapped every piece of clothing she could find around little Anna. Her own jacket, a spare sweater from the trunk, even a beach towel that had been left in the car from last summer. She made Anna look like a tiny bundle, with only her small face peeking out. The baby had stopped crying, which scared Maria more than all the crying in the world. Taking a deep breath, Maria pushed open the car door and stepped out into the storm. The wind hit her like a wall, so strong it nearly knocked her backward. Snow stung her face like tiny needles, and within seconds, her hair was covered in white. She held Anna close to her chest, using her own body as a shield against the howling wind. The cold was unlike anything she had ever felt. It went right through her clothes, through her skin, and seemed to settle in her bones. Her fingers were already going numb, making it hard to keep a good grip on Anna. She looked around, trying to get her bearings, but everything looked the same. White, just endless white in every direction. Maria remembered that her mother's house was somewhere to the north, but which way was north? The storm had turned the world upside down. The road was completely buried under snow, and she could barely make out where the car had come from. She picked a direction that felt right and started walking, each step sinking deep into the snow. Walking through snow that deep was like trying to walk through thick mud. Every step took tremendous effort. Maria's legs burned from the strain, and she was already breathing hard after just a few minutes. Anna felt heavier and heavier in her arms, and Maria had to stop every few steps to adjust her grip and catch her breath. The wind never stopped. It pushed against them from every angle, sometimes helping them forward, sometimes nearly knocking them down. Maria's eyes watered from the cold, and the tears froze on her cheeks. She tried to wipe them away, but her hands were too numb to feel her own face. After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, Maria realized she was lost. Nothing looked familiar. She couldn't see the road anymore, couldn't see any landmarks, couldn't even see her own footprints behind her because the wind kept filling them in with fresh snow. Panic started to creep into her chest, but she pushed it down. She had to stay calm for Anna. Anna was so quiet now, too quiet. Maria pulled back the blankets to check on her daughter and felt her heart skip a beat. The baby's lips were blue, and her skin felt cold even through all the layers. Anna's breathing was shallow and slow. Maria knew enough about babies to know this was bad. Very bad. "Stay with me, sweetheart," Maria whispered, her voice getting lost in the wind. "Mommy's going to get us help. Just stay with me." But even as she said it, Maria wasn't sure she believed it anymore. She was getting tired. Her legs felt like lead, and every step was getting harder. Her own body was starting to shut down from the cold. She could feel herself getting confused, forgetting where she was going or why she was out in this storm. Then she spotted something dark ahead. Trees. A small group of pine trees that might offer some protection from the wind. Maria struggled toward them, falling twice in the deep snow before she reached their shelter. When she finally got there, she collapsed against the largest tree trunk, holding Anna tight against her chest. The trees helped block some of the wind, but not much. Snow still swirled around them, and the cold was getting worse as night began to fall. Maria looked up at the darkening sky and realized with growing horror that they had been out here much longer than she thought. Soon it would be completely dark, and the temperature would drop even more. Anna wasn't moving at all now. Maria put her ear close to the baby's mouth and could barely hear her breathing. She tried rubbing Anna's hands and feet through the blankets, trying to get her blood moving. But her own hands were so numb she could barely feel what she was doing. "Please," Maria whispered to no one in particular. "Please help us. I don't know what to do." She looked around desperately, hoping to see lights from a house or hear the sound of a car, or see any sign that help was coming. But there was nothing, just the endless white snow and the howling wind and the growing darkness. Maria felt her own strength leaving her. Her body was shaking uncontrollably now, and she could barely keep her eyes open. She knew these were signs of hypothermia, knew that she was in serious trouble. But worse than her own condition was Anna's. The baby was so still, so cold, so quiet. In her desperation, Maria did the only thing she could think of. She began to sing. It was a lullaby her own mother had sung to her when she was little. The same song she sang to Anna every night before bed. Her voice was weak and shaky, and the wind tried to steal the words away, but she kept singing. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." The familiar melody seemed to give her a tiny bit of strength. She held Anna closer and kept singing, even though her voice was getting weaker and her words were starting to slur. From the cold, the song was all she had left to give her daughter, all she had left to fight the terrible cold and the growing darkness with. As she sang, Maria felt a strange kind of peace settling over her, even in the middle of this nightmare. At least they were together. At least Anna would hear her mother's voice, would know she was loved, no matter what happened next. The snow kept falling, and Maria knew they were running out of time. She could no longer feel her toes or fingers, and Anna had been completely still for the last hour. The baby's breathing was so faint that Maria had to put her ear right next to Anna's tiny mouth just to make sure she was still alive. Maria's own body was giving up. She could feel herself getting drowsy, which she knew was dangerous. She had read somewhere that when people freeze, they get sleepy right before the end. The thought terrified her, but she was so tired, every part of her body ached from the cold and exhaustion. She looked around one more time, hoping against hope to see some sign of rescue. A flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, the sound of voices calling their names, even the distant rumble of a snow plow on the road. But there was nothing, just the endless whisper of falling snow and the wind that never seemed to stop. Anna stirred slightly in her arms, making a sound so quiet it was barely a whisper. Maria looked down at her daughter's face. The baby's lips were almost purple now, and her skin was pale as the snow around them. But her eyes opened for just a moment, looking up at her mother with that trusting gaze that babies have. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," Maria whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry I couldn't get us home safe." Tears rolled down her cheeks and froze before they could fall. She had failed as a mother. She had put her daughter in danger, and now they were both going to pay the price. The guilt was almost worse than the cold. But then something inside Maria shifted. She realized that even if she couldn't save them, she could still give Anna something. She could make sure her daughter's last moments were filled with love instead of fear. She could sing to her the way she did every night at bedtime, the way her own mother had sung to her so many years ago. Maria found a small clearing where the snow wasn't quite as deep. She sat down carefully, cradling Anna against her chest, and wrapped her arms around her daughter as tightly as she could. She wanted to share whatever warmth she had left. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word," she began, her voice barely audible over the wind. "Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." The words came easier now, even though her lips were numb and her breath came out in white puffs that disappeared immediately. This was the song she had sung to Anna every single night since she was born. It was their special song, their bedtime ritual, their moment of connection at the end of each day. "And if that mockingbird won't sing, Mama's gonna buy you a diamond ring." As she sang, Maria started to remember all the dreams she'd had for Anna. She had imagined teaching her to walk watching her take her first steps across the living room. She had pictured Anna's first day of school, with her little backpack and lunchbox, waving goodbye at the classroom door. She had dreamed of birthday parties and Christmas mornings and summer vacations at the beach. And if that diamond ring turns brass, Mom is gonna buy you a looking glass. Maria thought about all the conversations they would never have. She wouldn't be there to help Anna with her homework or to comfort her. After a bad dream, she wouldn't get to hear Anna's first words or watch her learn to read. She wouldn't be there to give advice about friends and school and all the challenges that lay ahead. And if that looking glass gets broke, Mom is gonna buy you a billy goat. But even as these sad thoughts filled her mind, Maria felt something else growing stronger. Love, pure, overwhelming love for this tiny person in her arms. Anna was perfect, beautiful, innocent. She deserved so much more than this. She deserved a long, happy life full of laughter and joy and endless possibilities. And if that billy goat won't pull, Mom is gonna buy you a cart and bull. Maria's voice was getting weaker, but she kept singing. Each word was a gift to her daughter. Each verse a way of saying everything she might never get the chance to say. I love you. You are precious. You are wanted. You matter. And if that cart and bull turn over, Mom is gonna buy you a dog named Rover. As she sang, something strange began to happen. Despite the terrible cold and the hopeless situation, Maria felt a sense of peace washing over her. It was as if the song was creating a bubble of warmth and safety around them, a place where the storm couldn't touch them. And if that dog named Rover won't bark, Mom is gonna buy you a horse and cart. Anna seemed to sense something too. Her breathing became a little steadier, and she snuggled closer to her mother's chest. It was as if the familiar melody was comforting her, reminding her that she wasn't alone. And if that horse and cart fall down, you'll still be the sweetest little baby in town. Maria repeated the song, then sang it again. Her voice grew softer with each verse, but she didn't stop. This was all she could do now. This was her final gift to her daughter, a mother's lullaby, sung with all the love in her heart. The snow continued to fall around them, but Maria barely noticed anymore. She was lost in the song, lost in her love for Anna, lost in the bittersweet beauty of this moment. If this was their ending, at least it would be filled with music and love. She closed her eyes and kept singing, her voice becoming one with the wind. Maria's voice was barely a whisper now as she sang the lullaby for what felt like the 100th time. Her lips were so numb she could hardly form the words, and her breath came out in weak puffs that disappeared instantly in the cold air. Anna hadn't moved in her arms for over an hour, but Maria could still feel the faint rhythm of her daughter's heartbeat against her chest. Hush, little baby, don't say a word, she sang softly, the melody almost lost in the wind. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird. Just as she reached the end of the verse, Maria heard something that made her heart stop. It was so faint she thought she might be imagining it, a sound that didn't belong to the storm, a rhythmic crunching noise that seemed to be getting closer. Footsteps. Maria held her breath and listened harder. There it was again. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Someone was walking through the deep snow, and they were headed in her direction. Her mind raced between hope and disbelief. Was she hallucinating? She had read that people sometimes heard things that weren't there when they were freezing. Maybe her brain was playing tricks on her. But the sound kept getting closer, more distinct. Definitely footsteps, heavy and purposeful, breaking through the snow with determination. Maria tried to call out, but her voice was so weak that only a tiny croak came out. She tried again, using every bit of strength she had left. Help. She managed to whisper, please, help us. The footsteps stopped. Maria's heart pounded as she waited in the silence. Had whoever it was heard her? Were they listening? Or had they just paused to rest? Then she saw it. A beam of light cutting through the darkness and swirling snow. A flashlight. Sweeping back and forth as someone searched the area. The light passed over her once, then swung back, stopping directly on her and Anna. Over here. A man's voice called out, strong and clear despite the storm. I found them. Maria wanted to cry with relief, but she was too weak and too cold. She just held Anna tighter and waited as the footsteps came closer. Through the snow, she could make out the shape of a person bundling up in heavy winter gear, moving toward them as fast as the deep snow would allow. The man who reached them was tall and broad-shouldered, with a thick beard covered in ice and snow. He wore the kind of heavy-duty winter clothing that people in mountain towns knew how to use. His flashlight beam revealed eyes that were both kind and worried as he knelt down beside them. "Mom, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice gentle but urgent. "My name is Officer Thompson. I'm with the Park Rescue Service. We've been looking for you." Maria tried to nod, but she could barely move her head. She managed to whisper, "My baby. Please help my baby." Officer Thompson immediately began checking Anna's condition. His experienced hands working quickly but carefully. He had seen hypothermia cases before, and he knew how serious this was. Both mother and child were in critical condition, but they were alive. That was what mattered right now. "She's breathing," he said, and Maria felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Her pulse is weak, but she's hanging in there. You both are. You did good, Mama. You kept her warm." He pulled out a radio from his jacket and spoke into it with calm authority. "Base. This is Thompson. I've got them. 2 victims, adult female and infant, both showing signs of severe hypothermia. I need that medical helicopter here now. GPS. Coordinates are." He rattled off numbers that meant nothing to Maria, but everything to the rescue team. Officer Thompson then began the careful process of warming them up. He had thermal blankets in his pack, specially designed for emergency situations like this. He wrapped them around Maria and Anna, creating layers of insulation that would help their bodies retain heat, without warming them too quickly, which could be dangerous. "How did you find us?" Maria managed to ask, her voice still barely audible. "Officer." Thompson looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "This is going to sound strange," he said, "but I was searching about a quarter-mile from here when I heard singing. A lullaby. The sound carried on the wind, and I followed it right to you." Maria stared at him in amazement, her weak little voice. Singing that simple lullaby had somehow reached him through the storm. It seemed impossible. But here he was. "Your mother called us when you didn't arrive," he explained as he continued his emergency care procedures. "We've had search teams out all night, but this storm made it nearly impossible to see anything. I was about to head back to base when I heard that song in the distance." Maria could hear the sound of helicopter blades cutting through the air. The medical team was coming. Help was really here. She looked down at Anna, who seemed to be breathing a little easier now that they were warmer and safe. Officer Thompson smiled at her, his eyes crinkling with genuine warmth. "You know, I've been doing mountain rescue for 15 years, and I've never found anyone by following a lullaby before. That little girl of yours is lucky to have such a determined mama." As the helicopter landed in a clearing nearby, Maria felt consciousness starting to slip away. But for the first time in hours, she wasn't afraid. They were safe. Anna was going to be okay. The nightmare was finally over. The first thing Maria noticed when she woke up was the warmth, real warmth. Not the false warmth that comes right before freezing. She was lying in a hospital bed, covered with heated blankets that felt like heaven against her skin. The steady beeping of machines filled the room, and bright fluorescent lights made everything look clean and safe. She tried to sit up, panic immediately flooding through her as she remembered the storm. "Anna," she whispered, her voice hoarse and weak. "Where's my baby?" "She's right here, sweetheart." A gentle voice came from beside the bed. Maria turned her head to see a nurse with kind eyes and gray hair, holding a small bundle wrapped in pink blankets. "She's been waiting for her mama to wake up." The nurse carefully placed Anna in Maria's arms, and Maria felt her heart fill with relief so overwhelming she started to cry. Anna was warm and pink and breathing normally. Her little eyes were open, looking up at her mother with that same trusting gaze that had broken Maria's heart in the snow. "Is she okay?" Maria asked, running her fingers gently over Anna's soft cheek. "Really okay. Dr. Patterson, the emergency room doctor." appeared at the foot of the bed with a clipboard and a smile. "She's more than okay," he said. "Both of you are. I have to tell you, what happened out there was nothing short of miraculous. You were exposed to below freezing temperatures for over 8 hours. Most people don't survive that kind of exposure." Maria held Anna closer, still hardly believing they were safe. "How long have we been here?" 3 days. The nurse replied. "You've been in and out of consciousness while your body recovered from the hypothermia. But your daughter has been doing wonderfully. She's been eating well and sleeping peacefully. The doctors say there shouldn't be any lasting effects from her exposure to the cold." Over the next few hours, Maria slowly learned the full story of their rescue. Officer Thompson visited her room that afternoon, still looking tired from his long night of searching, but smiling broadly when he saw her awake. "An alert. You gave us quite a scare out there," he said, settling into the chair beside her bed. "But I have to tell you something that's been on my mind since we found you." Maria adjusted Anna in her arms and looked at him curiously. "I've been doing mountain rescue work for 15 years, Officer Thompson continued. "I've seen a lot of impossible situations, and I've learned to trust my instincts when I'm out there searching. But what happened that night was different." He leaned forward, his expression becoming more serious. "I was about ready to give up. The storm was too bad, visibility was near zero, and I was getting dangerously cold myself. I was heading back to the command post when I heard it." "Heard what?" Maria asked, though she thought she already knew. "Your voice, singing that lullaby. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Sound doesn't usually carry that far in a blizzard. But it was so clear, so beautiful, that I had to follow it. It led me straight to you." Maria felt goosebumps rise on her arms. "I was barely singing loud enough for Anna to hear. I don't understand how you could have heard it from so far away." Officer Thompson shook his head. "Neither do I. But I'm not questioning it. Sometimes things happen that we can't explain, and we just have to be grateful." Later that evening, after Officer Thompson had left, something else happened that made Maria's heart skip a beat. Anna had been sleeping peacefully in her arms when she suddenly started making soft sounds, not crying, but almost like humming. Maria listened more closely and realized with amazement that Anna was humming the melody of the lullaby. "That's impossible," Maria whispered to the nurse. "She's only 6 months old. Babies that young can't learn melodies." The nurse smiled and shrugged. "We've noticed it too. She's been doing it since she arrived. The doctors say there's no medical explanation for it, but it's not harmful. Maybe she just remembers feeling safe when you sang to her." As the days passed and Maria grew stronger, more visitors came to see them. Her mother arrived, crying tears of joy and relief. She had been the one to call the rescue service when Maria didn't arrive at her house. She told Maria how she had spent the entire night praying, unable to eat or sleep until she got the call that they had been found. "I knew you were strong," her mother said, holding both Maria and Anna in a gentle embrace. "But what you did out there, keeping that baby alive in those conditions, that takes more than strength. That takes the kind of love that can move mountains." The story of their rescue spread throughout the small mountain town. People called it a miracle. The local newspaper wrote an article about the mother who saved her baby by singing in a snowstorm. Strangers sent cards and flowers to the hospital. Everyone wanted to know how Maria had found the courage to keep going when everything seemed hopeless. But Maria knew the truth. It wasn't courage that had saved them. It was love. The simple, overwhelming love she felt for her daughter had given her the strength to sing when she had no voice left, to hope when there seemed to be no reason for hope, to keep fighting when her body wanted to give up. 6 months later, Maria and Anna were both healthy and thriving. Anna had grown into a happy, curious baby who laughed easily and slept through the night. And every evening, when Maria tucked her daughter into bed, she sang the same lullaby that had saved their lives. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word. Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." And without fail, Anna would smile and drift off to sleep, sometimes humming along with the melody that had guided them both through the darkest night of their lives. It was their special song. They're a reminder that love is the strongest force in the world, capable of miracles even in the middle of the worst storms.